Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming, like you had a choice. Show of hands. Who here has a great idea? You're just dying to get out there,
Now I do.
and sell it.
We're presenting in like 5 minutes.
How much money you need? A little more than that?
Already.
Well, but that's one of the things that we want to talk about to you guys tonight. And our project is basically based on Kickstarter and crowdfunding. Next slide, please. Oh, I almost forgot my team. We have Nicholas. But I'm the important one. My name is Carlos. So to start off, I'm going to talk about Kickstarter and what it is and how crowdfunding is important when it comes to helping people develop their ideas and their products. Their mission is to help bring creative projects to life. They're based in New York City. They started in 2009. They're only about 130 employees, a little bit more, and they're also relabeled themselves a benefit corporation. What that means, in case you don't know, is a corporation who has written to their charter as part of their business model. They're still for profit. They're not for profit. They're profit, but they also want to make sure that in the pursuit of profits, they're helping humanity, the community, and the benefit of mankind in general. So I think that's pretty cool. So that's something about them. Next slide, please. So we were very curious about, some of us want to be business owners one day, right? But the biggest problem we identified was that most startups fail, no matter what. I mean, everybody has great ideas, but for some reason or another, it just doesn't go through. Next slide, please. Why do they fail? Well, these are the major reasons. The first one, the major one, is the marketing. If you have another version of the selfie stick or some other equally bad product, I can't help you. I'm sorry. Nobody wants to buy it. Nothing we can do for you. But number two, funding. That we can definitely help you with. So we thought, let's help people get money they need through crowdfunding. And how do we make sure that people get the money they need? Well, simple. We just make sure they know how to, when they put the project on the web, especially Kickstarter or another place, is what words to use, what things to put on there, and what kind of projects they would invest in. Next, please. So before I get into that piece, go with some stats. They all have almost 30 million pledges to date, over $2 billion they've received for the project, not themselves, but the actual projects. Over 100,000 successful projects, and a success rate of 36%, which to me is pretty amazing, considering how many companies fail outside of Kickstarter. And next slide, please. Now, our business objective is, as we all know, in 2008, funding dried up for investments. Why? People got greedy. We had a financial crisis. After that, banks became very, very restrictive with the way they lend money out. They became very cautious, risk adverse. So people like us, they had ideas, we had a really hard time, without any financial backing or any kind of collateral, had a hard time finding money. So hence, our business objective is to help people like us who have great ideas but will not get a foot in the door to any bank, might get even left out of the bank, to help us get the money that we need to make our project successful. Now, here's a picture of one of the projects in Kickstarter. Funny is, learning code. Because how do we do this? Using Python, correct? We'll learn crash course in Python. Thank you very much, by the way. That was awesome. Not having a weekend, not having a life. But we learn, and we learn to love Python, right? Just some of the things that we have to do. One of the things we discovered is the best way to have a successful funding is to get your project overfunded. If you got your project overfunded, your company was almost 100% guaranteed to be successful. So we decided to use that overfunding piece, and we'll get more into that. We also discovered an insight we didn't realize when it comes to asking for money, and I'll cover that more towards the end. But as you can see, the website has pictures, it has videos, has numbers. We have to be careful with our coding, our web scraper, that we got the words that we needed, that we got the material that we needed. We didn't need the video, at least not for this. We didn't need some of the additional little gifs that were on there. We wanted to get the numbers of backers, the money, a description of the project. So we had to make sure that our coding just picked the things that we wanted. And it took us a while, but we got it, and we were happy with the results. Next slide, please. Now here, I want to hand it over to Tom. Yes. Talk a little bit about some of the things that we found.
So this was just an overview of the top 10 most funded projects that we found, and those were their goal amounts that they received, that they wanted to get, and that's what they got. As Carlos said before, the actual code that we wrote had a lot to maneuver. So I found, and we found as we were coding, that the pictures and the video was stuck in the HTML code, and in the tags where the text was, that's where all the pictures were and the videos. So we had to scrape around that, and the only way we figured out how to do that is to actually process the data in Excel and remove everything that wasn't just plain text from the description. So some of the challenges was scraping the text, like I just said, the pictures were there within the text. Cleaning and pre-processing the text data before modeling, that was another issue as we had a large data set. Each project description ranged in how many characters it had, so they weren't all equal. Scraping text data from failed projects. So originally we wanted to do a comparison of failed to successful projects, but because of, I believe last year, Kickstarter changed their policy, last year or 2 years ago, they changed their policy and said we'll no longer allow failed projects to be visible online. And it makes sense. They don't want people to go back and see what failed projects did wrong so that their project does better later on. We had to scrape the amount funded and the goal amounts, and then running topic extraction on scraped text. So our data consisted of just projects in technology and in the United States. We narrowed it down to just those two things. We scraped descriptions from 4,900 projects, successfully funded projects, but after cleaning, pre-processing, getting rid of duplicates, most projects, actually, the creators of the projects, they take the updates they do to their new product and they actually create another project on Kickstarter. So they'll do like, the first #1 funded project was Pono Music Player, and if they updated something, they'd call it Pono Music Player 2. And that would show up 3 or 4 times in our data set. So that's why we came back with only 2,500 projects that we used for our modeling. We labeled the overfunded and funded class by taking the mean percentage over what their funding amount was, and it was 160%. So anything that was equal to or less than 160% was labeled as funded, and anything over that was overfunded. And that caused our data to be split 50-50. So 50% was funded, 50% was overfunded. And we also ran 2 models, logistic regression and naive-based classifier. So these are just our model performances. We asked ourselves 2 questions basically. We said, what percentage of overfunded projects did we catch, which is recall, and what percent of overfunded project predictions were correct, that's precision. So we ended up going with overfunded F measure because it's the mean of the 2. So we could accurately say that these projects were overfunded. And then when we took a sample of 1,000 projects where 50% were classified as overfunded, our text-based model correctly predicts 288 overfunded projects out of the sample. And then next go.
Okay, so now we're going to transition to the actual results and findings from our project. So the first thing that we wanted to show you guys were the diagrams that we received. These were really important because they weren't only used for defining the successful projects, but more importantly, they were used for defining the projects that were overly successful. So these are really important for both people, for the individual who's adding a project, who wants to find the best way to obtain the most funding, and for those who are looking to support a project that's ultimately going to be successful. So on the next 2 slides, I'll be talking about these more specifically. So the first one I'm talking about here is international shipping. So this occurred in a lot of our overfunded projects. And the main assumption with this is that the projects that are shipping internationally have a greater chance of being successful as they increase their market share and also increase the amount of potential backers. So someone from another country is now seeing that they can also receive the product and are more interested in investing or backing the product. So the next one we have here is we hit. So there's 2 things with we hit. The first one is the actual word we. A lot of people, when they look at the word we, they see that there's a team behind the project and not just one person, which we feel is a very important factor in whether or not someone wants to back the project. The other thing we saw here was that we hit came together to show that the company has structure in their planning. So as you can see here, they're a very clear, defined company. They say, once they hit $250,000, they'll be doing this. So that was one of the most important factors.
Just to make it even real quick, there's actually a sample of one of the projects called stretch goals. And this is kind of like what you get for the money. So that's an example. So that's what this is, an example of an actual project, what they're offering.
So the next thing we did was break, which is automatic keyword extraction. So really what it is, it's an algorithm that extracts the keywords from documents or corpus of documents, and it's really important because it provides the compact representation of what's actually in the corpus of documents or data. Unfortunately for us, it didn't exactly work exactly how we were planning. What we found with Kickstarter was that there's each product description is so diverse and different and unique that we weren't able to get, it was pretty much didn't work for keyword extraction. So what we did next was we ran uClassify for the overfunded projects. So what it does is it pretty much tells us which category text is most likely to fall into, what category or class. So the first thing we did was topic extraction. And for our technology projects, over 82% of the overfunded projects fell into computers, followed by business and games. The second part that we did was we ran tonality of text. So what tonality of text says is the writing corporate and professional type of writing, or is it a more personal, informal type of writing? So going into tonality, we had the assumption that, of course, a more corporate type of writing, professional writing, would increase the chances of getting funding. So this is really important in really validating our assumptions with this portion of the project.
So we also used uClassify to see what kind of mood the writers of the descriptions, I guess, had at the time. And 97% of the project descriptions of our overfunded class, they were basically happy. They were writing happy thoughts down in the description, which actually correlates to the positive and negative sentiment analysis that we ran, because the happy text that they're writing also includes positive words as opposed to negative. And then for project description, we also ran business topics. So we wanted to see what kind of business topics people are including in their descriptions. And to no surprise, information technology was the top one in technology, and then followed by marketing and advertising. And we, after looking at this, we think the uClassify for business topics, it picks up on words like marketing and advertising that most project descriptions have written. So we saw a couple of our overfunded projects actually have marketing and advertising companies that advertise their projects outside of Kickstarter, and that's where that comes from.
So another thing we learned from the data, which is very interesting to us, we didn't not expect this result. Here's an example of it: is most people do not ask for the money they actually need. They're afraid to ask for the money, so they lowball. They ask for the minimum. One thing we recommend is don't think on your wallet. Think on your investor's wallet. They're there for a reason. They have money. Ask for what you need. This is one of the, to me, it was eye-opening. And it makes sense. When you need, think about yourself personally. You need a personal loan. You borrow money from a friend. Maybe you need $100, but you always ask for 50, right? Because you think he's not going to give you $100. Ask for 150, because they will give you $100 that you need. So that's kind of one of the things that was interesting for us, and we learned that. Now, so what does this mean? So you want to get a successful project. Here's a solution: positive words, and we're talking about not just like happy words. We're talking about like action words, action verbs. Will do, have accomplished, will help, amazing, life-changing. Avoid words like hopefully, maybe, I wish, things like that. If you're a wishful company, is anybody going to invest in you? No, right? And as you saw, some of the words that we saw, and you saw some of the words. Also, category of projects is very important. Like I said, another life is selfie stick, probably don't need. But if you have some innovative software technology, or now that we all know how to use Python, and create some kind of crazy invention, that will make people easier for them to take their vacations, away from, or create an app, which is possible for many of us now. That's something you definitely want to think about if you have a technology project. And the tonality description is very important, especially when it comes to how you present your project. Some people like to be informal, try to get try to be buddies with you. As an investor, if you're reading somebody, God forbid you even use slang in your project, it's going to turn you off. You're not going to invest. You're not going to trust these people. Unfortunately, whether it's right or wrong, if you use corporate speak, corporate words, clear and concise, to the point, it draws people. It draws their attention, and it draws the most important thing, their money, which equals success. So if we have more time and we have more practice, what we would love to have done is we don't see the number of shares in social media as far as how this project not only go from Kickstarter, but it gets shared. That's another big important part of it. The more investors you have, the more shares they do, the more successful you're going to be. So we kind of wanted to go in that avenue, but we're out of time. We want to build more predictive models, so we already understand what makes you successful. We wanted to predict how successful you could possibly be. And hopefully one day we can play with it. That'll be our invention. To go to Kickstarter and say, hey, we can help you guys if they don't already have it. And we want to show correlation between social media and success, which, like I say, the biggest thing is having backers. And we believe social media is a big part of it. Social media spreads the word and gets you more backers. And we really, just look at the data that we saw a hint of that, but we weren't able to explore it further. And of course, when it comes to analytics, you don't want to get a hint. You want to have to be as definite as you can, correct? So at this time, that's all I have. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Didn't you say that you used logistic regression?
We ran logistic regression as well as naive-based classifier, but the naive-based classifier was the better model, so we used that.
Especially with text, the way the word somewhere, it was hard to get it was easier to get groupings than it was to get
And I guess this question is more for stats. Where did they learn logistic regression? 60 to 65?
Yeah.
Any questions?